And what exactly does that mean? Um, some plants have a pronounced dry season during the year, some have a pronounced cool season during the year. So what you want to do is find out where your plant, what the origin of your plant is. If it's in the Himalayan mountains, it probably has a cool, drier season and a hot, really rainy season for about half the year. If it comes from northern Australia, it probably has a dry season where it hardly gets any rain at all. Some of the ones from South America, depending on where it is along the Andes Mountains, has a dry season and a wet season, or perhaps a cooler season. So there's all these little intricate things of my orchid plant is looking for some specific cultural change, and if you're giving it the same treatment all the time, you will either not get the signal to bloom, or perhaps you will kill it by just not giving it the break that it needs. So the first one I have here as an example is everything in the Catasetum Alliance, which is Catasetum, Mormotes, Signoches, and all the hybrids like Fred Clark Ara and Moneriara, etc. And what the characteristic of these guys that have a seasonal dry season, the South American ones, is they tend to have thin, flexible, oncidium-like leaves, and then a fairly large pseudobulb. Some of the Lycastes will also sort of follow this description. What you're looking for in the fall is if you see the leaves starting to yellow on the newest growth, and you never have had leaves on an older growth, that's a plant that wants to go dormant, okay? So this guy is starting his dormancy right now. He's already lost all but one leaf. At the same time, he's coming into bloom.
Is that normal?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So for the care for this for the winter time, any of the ones that naturally lose their leaves like this, what you want to do is give them a pronounced dry period. You just want to keep the pseudobulb plump. So if that means, if you see it start to wrinkle up, just spritz it. Don't give it a full watering. Just spritz it once in a while, just to get a few roots to soak up some water so that the bulbs themselves stay plump. That's all you want to do. You don't want to restart the rainy season until that new growth is well underway. Because the idea is that the new growth comes out as the rainy season is approaching. The roots get down in there before the rainy season gets there, and all the slugs and snails and stuff come back out of dormancy. So the idea is to get the roots down into their substrate before the slugs and things become active.
So you should
So
expect
don't
a
start
baby?
watering till your roots are about 3 inches long.
So you'd expect a little baby coming off the side then? Is that what you're saying?
From down at
Yeah.
the base of this, a new plant will come up, but probably not till March or April.
Oh, that's what I mean. So you stop watering now, wait till you see something, and then start watering again.
When you see lots of new root growth,
This, you have to worry about that.
right? Because
November to April.
approximately.
Gotta stop watering.
So those of you who have things like the Phalaenopsis and a lot of the little Oranges and things like that have leaves kind of like that, they don't have so much of a dry season per se, but because our environments are colder in the wintertime, some of these things can have issues. So as a general rule, you want to keep your plants just a little bit drier in the wintertime. So bump up your air movement. If you want to just keep watering the same way all the time, bump up your air movement, because if this stays cold and wet and the air is stagnant, you'll get fungal problems in here, which will often cause most of your leaves to drop off. A lot of plants, once they get a fungus in the leaves, it causes the cells that connect the leaf to the stem to close off. Just like our leaves turn yellow and red in the fall, it's because those vascular bundles have closed off, the leaf isn't getting the stuff it needs, and it just falls off eventually. And that's what happens when you'll get a fungus inside the leaf on this kind of a plant. So most of your plants, especially your warm-loving tropicals, if you're keeping your growing area a little cooler during the wintertime, keep your plants a little drier. If you try to make like a mathematical equation of the things that, here's my orchid plant in excellent condition, and it equals, water and temperature and fertilizer and so on and so forth. If you raise one of those elements, you generally have to raise the others. If you lower one, you have to lower the other. So if you're lowering the temperature, lower your waterings, lower everything else too, your food and your light and everything. Light isn't a problem because it just gets dark around here. So as a general rule, if you have a warm loving plant, a little bit drier throughout the winter time, and perhaps bump up your air movement if you're going to just continue watering the same way. There are a lot of plants that do not want any kind of a dormant period at all. The Phragmipediums are one of them. They want to be wet throughout the year. They don't really care if they get cool. In the wild, their roots are right down into the water, so watering isn't an issue with these guys. The plants that want a pronounced cool season, you just have to sort of know what they are. Some of the Oncidium alliance things, they want to be sort of cool all the time. The Miltoniopsis, the pansy orchids, they like to be cool all the time, and most of it's hybrids as well, the Volsticarias and all those guys. So, winter is their time to really flourish. Summer is their time to suffer.
What about Vanda?
Vandas want to be warm all the time,
So watered?
and they want to be watered all the time.
Okay.
So you don't want to keep them in a cool place. Vandas do not want to go below 50 degrees. If they go below 50 degrees, their roots stop growing, and the plant shuts down for about a 6-week period. It looks perfectly fine, but it's not doing anything, which means it's not storing up energy to get you blossoms next show season. So keep your Vandas warm. In fact, any of those things that come from really hot and steamy tropical regions, try to keep a warm zone for them. Any questions?
So I have this little tiny Phalaenopsis that was mounted. Kind of looks like this, but it's not. It's a Phalaenopsis. And all the leaves fell off, just like you're saying.
A lot of Phalaenopsis do
I
that.
hate them.
Yeah, because I inevitably water them at just the wrong moment, and the flower stem falls off too.
Well, so is it dead, or should this
No,
has
no,
roots that look like this? Though.
as long as your roots are alive, it's fine.
What do I do though? It's just sitting there.
A lot of
just
those little
do nothing?
species just have a naturally cooler period, and they are typically deciduous. It's just the nature of the beast.
But what should I do with it though?
Just hang it up and spritz it once in a while.
Okay,
but-
forget about it. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe
When
we'll-
you see new leaves start to grow when the warmer weather comes, then it's
So it might not be
fertilize
dead yet.
the
I
daylight side.
hate those damn things.
No, I have one that lost its leaves every year for like 6-7 years.
Oh, but you kept it. It's probably the same one I bought this thing from you.
Probably. Did it have any leaves on it when you bought it?
Yes, it did, but I killed it since then or something, and I'm just keep looking at it thinking, because it was like, once again, I said, I'm never buying a Phalaenopsis again, and I got suckered into one.
I've got some new ones.
No, that's it. That's never. This is
The
the last
odd one that I was hoping you wouldn't ask was Dendrobiums, and the Dendrobium is a huge complex class, and
They're all over
some
the
need a
place.
dry season, some need a cool season, some need a cool dry season. Just as a general rule, when in doubt, if you're keeping your plant cooler, keep it dry. Okay. The Dendrobiums, you can get that sheet from the American Orchid Society that separates them into different sections. So if you go to the AOS website, click on Dendrobium sections, and that'll
Because that one's very confusing where they belong.
It is, but once you start to get familiar enough with the Dendrobium group, you'll see that all those really thin ones, thin-caned ones, some of those are deciduous. There are a few that are deciduous. Almost all the others are evergreen and want the same conditions throughout the year. The Laturia type's a little bit cooler, a little bit drier. Some of them want a pronounced dry season, and those ones typically, you just have to know which ones they are.
I never guess it right.
Medium Black Sambo is the Australian.
And it's a hot, loving plant. It does not like cold at all. So keep that one as bright and sunny as you can, and as warm as you can. And keep in mind, these places that have a pronounced dry period in the year, dry periods are usually associated with more sunshine. Okay, so if you're keeping your plant dry, try to bump your light up as well, because that can be helpful to the plant.
The habanero, does that have light right now? Or even though you're not-
The habanerias, as soon as they start losing their leaves, you start keeping them dry. Just tip their pots on the side so you don't water them.
You don't then necessarily take it out of the light, do you?
No,
Okay, it doesn't.
you can put it wherever you want. Just remember to look at it once in a while, so when you see that new rosetta leaves come up, you can start watering again. And during the dormant period is the time to replant those if you're going to replant them. I like to replant them because they will, if they're happy, they'll usually produce 2 corms for every one that you started with. So if you divide them, they have more room. It doesn't necessarily mean you put them in separate pots. You can just separate them within a bigger pot.
So down in there somewhere, we should see some corms, huh?
Yep, they're like little tubers,
Yeah.
like little carrots, but they're white and fuzzy.
What about the jewel orchids?
The jewel orchids are another warm-loving plant that don't really have a dormant season. They should be doing something all the time. The shorter days and cooler nights should be triggering their flowers production. Anything else? Well, and if you have questions, always feel free to ask me. But also, when you buy a plant, ask the vendor. Does this have a dormant season or a dry season or a cold season or whatever? And write it on the back of your tag if you don't think you're going to remember. Maybe color code your tags if, all the red ones have a dry season or something like that.
Are you different colors? But yours are all yellow.
It's a warning. Slow
I
down.
was hoping the plants were all green, but.
No, I meant the tag.
All right, well, thanks. I think we're getting close to meeting time.